engaged in the war. Iran activated a lot of its militias. The Houthis, another militia in Yemen that is loyal to Iran, other militias in Iraq and Syria. These are militias that Iran has been preparing for many years for this eventuality. For if war breaks out in the Middle East, it's not just Iran. All these militias can all of a sudden be activated and turn the Middle East into hell, which is what it will give Israel and the U.S. some pause. Iran activated them, but did not get involved itself. The reason this is somewhat of a game changer is in the last 2 months, Israel has started to, quote unquote, up the ante in terms of its responses and retaliations and attacks against Iranian officials and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard soldiers and quote unquote advisors within these different militias, rather than just attacking Hezbollah or just attacking the Houthis or just attacking the different militias. Israel started targeting the Iranian officials themselves in Syria, in order to send a message to Iran saying you cannot keep on playing this game of activating your proxies without paying the price. The major escalation of that culminated in the attack on April 1st that Israel carried out in the Iranian consulate in Damascus that targeted the main commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards in all of Syria and Lebanon. That was a major blow. So this is how now Iran, 6 months into the war, all of a sudden is getting pulled in. Hamas wanted them to do this from day one. Hamas called upon Iran and Hezbollah saying, join the war. Iran, I will say, did almost everything it could to show that it is supporting Hamas's war while
All right, guys, this is the first time I've ever gone live, so I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm still trying to figure it out. So I also got to figure out how to make a thumbnail and put the thumbnail for the live coverage. But I'm going to try to cover what's going on live for a little bit before I go to work. If I go to work, I might not go to work, who knows. Yeah. So I'm just going to cover this for a minute. I'm going to try not to talk much at the moment while I figure things out. And we're just going to let this live coverage go for a second. And then I'll give a little bit of my thoughts.
Something that does not spiral into an all-out regional situation. Could be that these drones will be intercepted, the cruise missiles will land, cause some damage. The United States is applying a lot of pressure on Israel to try to facilitate also spiraling the situation down. Could remains to be seen, my mantra.
So, Alon, we did get a soundbite in from the IDF. I want to play this out. It's a little bit under a minute long. Let's just listen to what they had to say about this situation.
Iran has launched a direct attack from Iranian soil towards the state of Israel. We are closely monitoring Iranian killer drones that are en route to Israel sent by Iran. This is a severe and dangerous escalation. Our defensive and offensive capabilities are at the highest level of readiness ahead of this large-scale attack from Iran. Together with our partners, the Israel Defense Forces is operating at full force to defend the state of Israel and the people of Israel. This is a mission that we are determined and ready to fulfill. I will keep on updating.
So I don't think there's anything too surprising that we heard from those quick comments from the IDF alone, but I will continue to go through some of the live images that we have here. This is northern Israel. This is what we're staring at right now. Northern Israel. This is Tel Aviv, and this is southern Israel. The White House says that it will provide unspecified support for Israel's defense against an ongoing airborne attack from Iran. So, I do want to ask you a little about the U.S.'s involvement in this alone. Why is the U.S. so entangled in all this?
So there's several different facets that are involved. First of all, the United States has been a longstanding ally of Israel. I mean, the two countries have an alliance that goes back, many decades. And so that's just reason number one. It started, during the Cold War, and it started with the alignments between Egypt was allied more with the Soviet Union, so the United States allied more with Israel. This is now I'm talking about the 50s and 60s, but from there, the relationship really flourished. And there's a lot of reasons for the internal political reasons in the United States. Why also, in a bipartisan way, Both
I could tell you
parties
some of
show
those
their support for
reasons.
Israel unequivocally, but that's the more macro long stories of the relationship between the United States and Israel. Right now, what has developed in the last several decades is sort of different alignments in the United States between forces that are more allied with the quote unquote West, which is
I
obviously
can hear my
represented by the
dog
United
barking at
States, chief
chickens.
among them, but also the EU and to some extent Israel, and forces that are aligned with more the opposing axis, I'll say, because to some extent you could say an Islamist axis, but once again, it's a combination of Shiites and Sunnis, so it's not always clear who's on the other side, right? Theoretically, the other side of the Western forces in the Middle East would include both Iran and ISIS and Al Qaeda. True, but Iran is a mortal enemy of ISIS and Al Qaeda. Even though they're both Islamists, Iran is Shiite, Al Qaeda and ISIS are Sunni. So they don't get along and they attack each other more than anyone else. So it's hard to
More
say what
war,
the other
everyone.
axis is. We could
Thank
say a
Biden.
broad range of Islamist forces. With that, the United States has become more and more involved as leading the quote unquote pro-Western side. The United States has not only deepened its alliance with Israel over the years, it has also deepened
If anybody
its
is
ties with Jordan,
noticing something up
with
with the
Egypt.
stream, please let
Saudi
me know
Arabia
so
is
I
a
can
very,
fix it.
very critical actor
I really
also,
don't know what I'm
that on the
doing,
one
and
hand,
I'm
the
figuring this out in real
rules
time.
within the kingdom
So
and the laws within the kingdom that's run pretty much as a theocracy are very conservative and very sort of empathetic towards Islamist ideals. But the actual leadership is actually much more pragmatic and a lot more aligned with the quote unquote West. So with that, the United States has sort of pulled these countries more to its side.
like I said, if
But
you
as a
notice
result, the United
anything
States is also more involved
with the stream,
and
let me know.
embroiled in the different fights.
I'm learning
these
with you
countries are in.
guys.
Saudi Arabia, for example, has been at war with the Houthis since 2014. The United States was not really involved in that, but when it comes to the Houthis attacking Israel, when it comes to different sides aligning themselves when the Middle East starts spiraling, obviously the United States is going to find itself against the Houthis because they're attacking Saudi Arabia and Israel. It's two allies. Same goes here. In terms of the balance of power and alliances, the United States finds itself on the side of Israel in the same way as it's on the side of Jordan and on the side of Egypt. So whenever they're attacked, and Israel is much higher up on the alliance list of the United States, whenever they're
Rapture
attacked, the
ready?
United States will find
Yep.
itself
Yes,
involved.
it is.
At the same time, on the other side also, Iran hates the United States far more than it
And
hates
of course,
Israel.
they would hit
Israel just a lot closer.
during
In
or
the
right after
parlance of
Shabbat.
Iran, the United States is the big devil. Israel is called the small devil. The United States is the big devil. So there's sort of there's a mutual situation where Iran has activated
And if
militias
anybody
and
comes
tried
in and
to
likes and
go
subscribe, I
against
really
US
appreciate that.
interests in the Middle East. Iran set up all these militias in Iraq. This was during the time
Everybody
the
that's been
United
watching
States
the videos
was
I have
occupying large
posted, y'all
parts
have been
of
really
Iraq.
nice, so
And Iran
I
set up these
appreciate
militias
that.
specifically in order to attack and kill U.S. service people. So with that, the sides have fallen.
And
such that the
I
United
work
States
nights
is a
and I
big
just woke
rival
up,
of Iran,
so bear
but
with me.
specifically the balance of alliances has put the United States now almost in direct confrontation with Iran, because if the U.S. would let Iran attack Israel and not try to at least also use its air defenses, maybe the United States is not one to actually involve itself in the war, but not at least try to
I agree.
intercept
At least they
these
were that
drones
nice.
and
They waited
missiles
until
alongside
sundown.
Israeli air
How
defenses.
sweet.
It will really be seen as the U.S. betraying a major ally in the Middle East. That will have a lot of consequences. When you betray allies, when you backtrack from alliances, what ends up happening is your allies, your partners, end up turning elsewhere. We saw this a little bit under the Trump administration when the United States was retrenching a little bit more from Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, and Saudi Arabia all of a sudden started saying openly, okay, well, if that's the case, we may have to have a defense pact with Iran. Just in order to show the United States, if you are not on our
Hey,
side,
thanks for
whenever
coming
we
in
want,
and
then
chatting,
we
by the
have
way.
an
I
option.
appreciate
So
that.
the United States would not let the balance of alliances fall apart in the Middle East. And in long-term strategic thinking also, I don't know if that's going to be enough for the United States to say, and if Israel attacked Iran, we're going to participate. That's already obviously one step further. But certainly participating in air defenses is something the United States, I think, is quote-unquote happy to do.
I want to pull up a tweet from Jennifer Griffin. She's Fox's national security correspondent. She says, This week, situational assessments and approvals of plans were conducted in the IDF in preparation for an attack from Iran. The forces of the IDF are very strongly prepared for offense. And
See, Iran
defense,
wanted
and are
everybody to know
widely
it was happening,
deployed. So
'cause this is the
makes
first
me
wave.
wonder, alone, while we here and we look at these
So, like, this ain't
again,
the end. They're doing the drone attack first, and then
live image
what's coming next is most likely ballistic
focuses.
missiles.
This is Tel Aviv. This is northern Israel. Have there been any high, should I say, high intensity targets?
I'll be right back. My dog keeps
maybe a better
barking at
word
chickens.
would be, what are the highly desirable targets, perhaps, from Iran's perspective? Would they be going after any particular part of Iran, or is that our best guess? Any particular part of Israel at this point, I should say, or is that our best guess at this point?
So there are a lot of targets that Iran would like to strike at.
I have a bunch of chickens, and my dog is
strategically
just
valuable
going ham
targets.
right now.
Anything from the main Air Force base that Israel has in the northern parts of Israel. Hezbollah has tried to launch missiles towards this base already several times since the war began.
Hezbollah always
So-
does that.
Iran would, I'm sure, like to severely cripple or even just try to destroy that base in order to also show, see, and when we get involved,
Hey,
we
Rapture Ready,
manage to
yeah.
cripple, attack,
Here, let me
destroy
turn this down a
the
little
air
bit.
capabilities of the great.
I
power
have
that we
I have my biases,
Other symbolic
but when it
targets
comes to
would be
this, like when it comes to
Knesset,
war,
Israel Parliament, the airport. Israel has
war
one
from all
military
sides is
airport,
evil.
and Israeli airspace is
I mean, it just is.
closed as of
So
half an
as a
hour ago.
Christian,
But the airport is
now I
obviously a
do
very
believe
prime
that we,
target.
you know, people have a
All
right to
these
defend
are very
themselves, and
symbolic.
but at the end of the day,
That will tell us something
nobody
about
wants to see
what the-
war.
the extent of
So
escalation that Iran
that's my
wants.
take.
If Iran
And when you have rabbis like
maintains,
when I covered the Kansas
the
thing
attack to be
that are
focused
like
on military
saying all this
targets,
crazy
as in
stuff
Air Force
in
bases,
support of what they're
um,
doing,
or even just
you got to call that
Air
out.
Force bases, or
You
even
gotta
just,
call
you
that
know,
out.
IDF troops or deployment or things like that, or even the airport under the excuse, so to speak.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
It's a military target because also.
And I think more people
US
feel that
Air
way
Force-
than they don't,
Israeli Air Force
even if
launches
they're
from
scared to
there.
say that.
That is something that still, again, if that were the case, then the United States could pressure Israel to say, look, you attack their consulate, they attack the air bases.
But as a
you can
Christian,
afford
they're not
to
attacking, they're responding to
retaliate
Israel. Yeah,
and
I mean they
not
are.
lose face. In
But
turn,
you know, at the end of the
use
day,
the missiles and drones
they've
to
been
try to
doing this
strike
for
civilian
decades.
targets, and then you have a
It's
slew of
nothing
other
new.
targets that would be valuable.
But this
Anything
is a
from
significant escalation
the
from
main
prior.
economic sector
It's usually
in Tel
proxy
Aviv and
stuff.
Ramat Gan,
But the
to
fact that
religious
Iran's
sites in
launching from their
Israel,
own
their holy
soil now,
Judaism,
that's
to all kinds of other symbolic facets.
a little bit different.
Then that would also tell us if they strike at that shows us that Iran wants a larger.
But as a
escalation,
Christian, at
because
the end of the
Iran knows
day,
that there's no way that they're going to strike
you know,
civilian targets, and
we have
possibly
Jesus
cause a
Christ. Faith in
civilian death
Jesus
Israel and
Christ. We
not
know how it ends.
receive the
That's all
wrath
that
of the
matters.
IDF in response. So
That's the best way to
we'll
look
be
at it.
smarter in a couple hours.
It would be unreasonable for anybody not to retaliate.
Can't thank you enough for hopping on last moment here.
Like if
We
Mexico
are going to continue,
attacked
obviously,
one of our
following the
consulates
situation as the hours
somewhere or
progress.
attacked
We
us
will learn
directly, we would
more,
respond.
and we will be in touch soon. Thank you for your assessment.
I live in my
shortly.
tensions are high.
I'll
Yeah,
see you
dude.
within a few hours.
I'm praying for you,
All
man.
right, alone. Thank you. So, let's, in the meantime here,
I hate
just
that
reset. We
everybody in the
just got
Middle
a
East
lot
has to
from
deal with
Alone.
that.
Alone is a
And,
very
like,
knowledgeable
listen,
person. He has studied this stuff.
like I said, I'm biased. I'm
I
a
will again
Christian.
reiterate,
I have my
we're looking at a
biases.
few live images here. One is a live view out of Tel
But
Aviv.
You got to call out
And
when each side makes
click here.
mistakes, when
This
each
is
side
southern
does something
Israel.
evil.
This is Tel Aviv. This
Nobody
is
wants to
northern
see
Israel.
escalation of
Watching
war.
Just about every place imaginable at this time.
And you can't blame other people for turning on Israel when Israel's striking everybody every chance to get.
Unmanned drones.
I mean,
reach Israel proper. We are not done breaking this down with our analysts and experts. We are going to have former FBI investigator Ken Gray, who is going to be joining us shortly here. We are going to be having him on within the next 5 minutes or so to give us his assessment of everything that is breaking down.
Israel's no saint
in the
here,
Middle
neither
East
Iran.
right
No,
now.
nobody.
So I'm gonna take this
Listen,
opportunity
if
while
anybody
we
is saying
set
that
up Ken
anybody
Gray,
on either side
I
is
just
in the
wanna read
right,
what
they're
Fox
lying
News
to
and
you.
what the Associated Press are reporting about this
All sides are
developing
wrong.
situation. Here's what
All
we know
sides,
so
even the
far.
United States.
Iran's
My country
launched
is wrong.
drones from its
Everybody's
own
wrong.
territory toward Israel
Russia's
later
wrong,
on
Ukraine's
Saturday,
wrong, everybody who's
days
engaging
after
in
its
all-out
supreme
war
leader
is
warned
wrong.
that it would hit back
I do not
in
understand
response
why
to
that's a
an airstrike
controversial
on the Iranian
controversial thing to
consulate
say.
in Syria that left several generals dead. Earlier Saturday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel had for weeks, quote, been preparing for the possibility of a direct attack from Iran. The Prime Minister said that Israel's air defenses are deployed. They are ready for any scenario, both in attack and
Amen. Yep.
in defense. Israel has not
Listen,
claimed
everybody
responsibility
just-
for the attack
whatever
on
faith you
Iran's
have, just
consulate in
pray.
Damascus.
That's all you can do.
That's the initial attack that led to this retaliatory response.
Only God is right,
from
war is war.
Iran.
Yep.
President Biden, we hear, is being regularly updated on the situation by his national security team and will meet with them.
I'm from
this
Norway, and I
afternoon.
think it's
He
going to
may
be
meeting
worse
with
in the
them as
West
we
when
speak.
Putin
We
is
saw
done
him
there. Yeah,
arrive to Washington, D.C. just shortly,
most likely.
just not too long ago.
Now,
His
I
team
haven't seen
is in
any
constant
evidence thus
communication
far
with
that
Israeli
he
officials
has
as well
any
as other partners
official
and
plans to
allies. That's
expand,
according to a
but
statement from the National
I mean, we've seen it in history before,
Security Council,
so
the
I'm
White
not going to
House.
say that that's
So,
impossible.
we do have a guest standing by right now. Ken Gray is joining us to discuss this ongoing situation. And Ken, I just want to make sure that you have me here. We are going to bring you in. Okay, Ken, so thank you for coming on.
Yes, an old
this
dude
developing situation
to
is
explain to
something,
us what we already know.
Obviously, we expected something to happen in short time here. We didn't exactly know what it would look like. What's your initial assessment of what we're seeing out of the Middle East today?
You're muted, Boomer.
Beginning of something, but we don't know if the drone strike, the intended drone strike here, is going to be the entirety of the attack, or if it will be just the
Unlikely.
First wave, or it will be a combination of drones and missiles at the same time. We just don't know as of yet exactly how this will play out. Two possibilities. One is that this is a symbolic attack on the part of Iran.
The problem is people have this Marvel idea of good or bad.
Their embassy in
Every side thinks they are right.
and
Yep.
that the drone attack will be the
Every
entirety
side of
this,
any war in
attempt.
history,
The
each side
second
thinks they're in the right.
possibility, though,
That's
is,
facts.
full-out regional conflict where Iran attacks with the drones.
I can see the red in my beard a
and
lot.
then sets free all of their proxies in the area, primarily Hezbollah. And so what Hamas wanted to happen from October 7th until now may be actually happening. That is, Hamas attacked with the intention of getting the other players in that region to join in with them. They may actually see that happen as of today's beginning
I
attack
try to see if
here.
I can see any
The
updates
missile
on
attack-
Twitter.
I'm sorry, the drone attack here, it's 1,200 miles from Tehran to Tel Aviv. So this is going to have, if the drones were to survive, it would take, 5
Iran have
or
been very
7 hours
specific that they're going to
get
hit
there.
military targets,
And so
while occupation is never okay. Don't
arrival
blame the
day,
victims for
time would be
resisting.
9 to 7 o'clock.
I'm not blaming
9 to
anybody.
11
War, I
p.m.
mean,
our
war is
time,
war.
If it were just the drones.
Markets
if
are
they do
crashing.
survive.
Yeah, I
Now,
don't
it's
doubt
my
that.
understanding that
Let me
they are
open up
being
Robinhood.
intercepted, and that other countries
Okay.
are offering to shoot them down too.
Go look at my stocks. They're
So,
probably
the drones
tanking.
may never even reach Israeli airspace, but the Iron Dome should be able to handle them.
You bring up the Iron Dome. I know the Iron Dome is something that's protected Israel quite extensively over the course of this most current iteration of the war. I have a tweet up on your screen. So here's what I want to ask you about, because this tweet is from Representative Carlos Jimenez. So he's talking about Jordan. He says our ally, the Kingdom of Jordan, has declared a state of emergency and
Why
had
can't I
announced
see my stock?
that they will shoot down any drone from Iran entering its airspace. Let's do a little geography
Crypto,
lesson
okay.
here, Ken.
Let me
In
open
order
up
for anything to move from
my
Iranian
Coinbase then.
airspace to Israeli airspace, it would
my
have
crypto.
to cross
I have
through
2
Jordan.
crypto
Am I
accounts.
right, geographically?
You are indeed correct. It will have to pass through Jordan. Now, that
All good or all bad
I
mentalities are
guarantee
counterproductive.
that
Yep.
Jordan will
I
be
agree.
involved. That's very interesting because Jordan normally stays neutral. They allow the U.S. to
Oh, yeah.
be based
Wow.
in there, but they have not taken action themselves. So this is
Oh,
very
dude, the
very
Bitcoin
interesting that
drop.
they
Oh
are
my
saying that
God.
they would shoot down any drones passing through their
It's like
airspace. I believe that additionally,
Dude, all
that,
of it.
we may see the Saudis
That's
do
wild.
likewise. Offer to shoot down any drones passing over their airspace.
Literally every
also.
crypto on my
So
account
again, none of
is
these
just
drones may actually ever
a
reach
slope.
Israel itself. But if this is an attempt to see what the response will be, and a wave of cruise missiles come in, then it's a different game entirely.
So you're the second person we've had on today who has that same analysis.
So I don't know
this
how long
could
I
very
can do
well
this.
just
I'm
be the
supposed to go to
beginning
work.
kind of test the waters here.
I'm
What
debating
makes
whether or
us
not I want to
think that
skip or
way?
not,
Is there a
but
historical precedence for
I need
something like
money.
this taking place?
It's not historical precedence.
Sadly, I'm
but
not
what it
making money on
it's
YouTube
just
yet.
logical that the drone strike itself is not going to do much damage. The drone strike itself can easily be handled. But if it is,
If I was making money here, though, I would
an
stay and
attempt
cover it for
to
y'all.
draw the Israelis out to have them concentrating on that they'll not be ready for the missile attack, then that makes the missile attack.
Yeah,
much
Joseph,
more, the
I'm
cruise missile
pretty
attack
sad
much
looking at
more,
this.
Possible to get to their intended
Oh,
target.
there goes all my
So
gains.
Ken, we're getting another tweet in. Let's pull this up. This is from the Prime Minister of Israel's office. So Prime Minister
All those
Benjamin
D-ribs.
Netanyahu. Let's pull this up in full. So Netanyahu
Go to work,
is
bro. This
currently
can
convening
consume
the
your
war
mind too
cabinet.
much. God bless. Hey,
This is
yeah,
not a surprise, but
I
I gotta
agree.
ask a guy like you, what
I'm gonna
sort
cover
of
it a little bit longer, and
discussions
then
are they
most likely
having in this room now
gonna
that
go to
they
work.
At least have some sort of idea, at least about how Iran is starting this attack.
Someday, man,
Yeah,
takes time to build
so
your
they
channel. Oh, yeah, I
are,
agree.
Trying to decide.
Hey, I had a good start.
Where to
Had a
move
good start.
IDF forces at to position.
I got like
them in the
250
event some of
subs
these
in a matter of
militias
2
get
days
involved.
on that first Candace
If
video.
Hezbollah moves from only launching missile attacks into Israel. If
It's so
they,
sad to see
actually
war
try
when
to
we
move
have so much
troops
potential.
across
Yep.
the border into Israel,
peace in the world.
IDF will want to be pre-positioned for that. So one of the things that will be
We won't
discussed
get
is
full peace
positioning
until
of IDF troops, moving them around
get
to
Jesus.
be ready to handle this. Now they've had several days. They've already moved some of these troops, so this may be just to see their readiness posture to deal with this kind of a threat if it actually materializes.
So Ken, when we talk about the U.S.'s response to this, is it likely that U.S. officials are also having similar meetings like the one
I
we're
see
seeing
9 likes,
in
so
Israel
I
right
appreciate that, guys.
So in the Eastern Med, there's the carrier battle group that is there, and they've moved ships.
I'm learning
closer
all
to
this in real
shore
time with all
that
of you.
are anti-missile defense ships, and so the Navy is ready to support Israel in whatever capacity. as
Just in,
necessary,
Biden to
and
address
their
the nation
strength in
from the
this
Oval
area
Office.
is both
Yay.
defending against missiles.
Phil Labonte
and
said, "Should I go get a pack of
their,
Marlboros?"
combat air readiness.
Hold up.
They can launch combat air coverage to support Israel.
I want to bring that over.
at a
I want to
moment.
show y'all this.
So I would not be surprised if they already have aircraft up on CAP stations, combat air patrol stations, ready to
This is
be
funny.
launched towards any type of incoming threats.
Phil
now.
Labonte is
The
hilarious, dude.
reports that came out said that drones were headed toward Israel. UAVs were also included in some of the reports.
Should I go get a pack of
The
Marlboros?
word UAV or the drones can be used for a number of things. What comes to mind when you hear that? What type of vehicle? What
Yep.
type of equipment are we
I
talking
got
about?
plenty of that.
Yeah. So the Iranians have been the ones supporting the Houthis, providing the drones to them. They have.
Yep, that's definitely my reaction right now.
Drones, but these are unmanned aerial vehicles that carry missiles on board.
American Spirit still lasts longer. You'll need longer lasting smokes.
Slow compared to aircraft, but they are capable of traveling this distance and capable of launching missiles once they get into the area. And consequently, they are a threat, but they are a far lesser threat than cruise missiles coming in by themselves. They travel much higher speeds.
I want to ask about Iran's proxies, because this attack is what we're hearing, at least from initial reports. This is coming from Iran proper. So can you give us the distinction? You and I, we followed this war very, very closely.
Tim
with the many
Pool, I'm over
people
here chilling in
tuning
Iran
in
be
who don't
starting World War
follow
III.
who don't follow every single day in, day out of how this thing has been going. So can you differentiate between an attack coming
The
from
King
Iran
of Jordan
proper
promises
versus
to shoot
its
down
proxies,
any
which is
Iranian
usually what we're
drones that
talking about,
violate
like
Jordanian
Hezbollah, like Hamas,
airspace.
like the Houthis. This one is coming
Jackson
from Iran
Hinkle was such
proper. What's the significance of that?
an idiot, dude.
So this is the first time that we've seen Iran in this particular situation actually get engaged with Israel directly. So this is unusual. Perhaps the earlier
Yeah, like I said, this
taking
is
of the ships,
this is significant.
the
When you're launching
Ares
from your own
earlier,
soil, this is no longer a proxy
that in
war.
itself was an action by Iran against a ship that is owned by an Israel, or at least operated by an Israeli businessman. But this attack by launching drones,
Man,
and
my
perhaps
crypto
following it
looks
up
so
with,
sad.
with cruise missiles, that will be a direct attack by Iran.
Heavenly
on
Minded,
Israel.
thanks for the
Today,
sub. I just got the
Iran
alert.
has been operating through its axis of
I don't know. I don't
resistance
think you did it
that
during the
is
stream. I'm
using
not sure.
militias all across the area there of Iraq, Syria, and into Lebanon, and also the Houthis down in Yemen.
I got 3 subs
the
from this,
Hamas
so
is
whoever
considered to be part
subbed,
of
I
that,
appreciate that.
axis of resistance, as is the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Inside of Iraq and inside
It's
Syria,
not telling me who subbed.
the Quds Force, which is the Iranian equivalent of special forces and intelligence, they've been directing the activities of some of these militia groups. But these militia groups are not totally under the control of Iran. They give them directions,
And if anybody
but
notices
they are
something going
able
up
to
with the
do
stream,
attacks on their own, or
something
they
that's
are
wrong,
able
let me know,
to-
because
to change
this
the
is my
type
first
of
stream and I'm
direction
still
that
trying
they
to
are
figure it out.
receiving.
So
So this, when we see if the proxies get involved, it'll be interesting to see whether it is just Hezbollah or if it is Hezbollah plus militias out of Syria and or out of
it's going to
Iraq.
be
I think
all
it's
the
important to make this
proxies.
connection because we talk so much about the
No
Israel-Hamas
proxy is going to
war.
be
People
left
might
out.
be tuning in and hearing about an Iran strike. So, can you make the connection for us? Why is it that an
I doubt he
Iran,
can.
UAV strike?
dude's just saying a whole
has
bunch of stuff
connection
that's
to the
obvious.
Israel-Hamas war. What are the connections, and why does it matter in that war?
So the most recent event that is requiring Iran to take this action is Israel's attack on
Damascus.
Iranian embassy there in Damascus. And so as a result of that direct attack on which killed, by the way, the general that was in charge of the Quds Force in that area, and has greatly reduced their capability of having impact in Syria and in Iraq because of the loss of the leadership. This is equivalent of when the United States attacked General Soleimani. This is a similar level of attack. But Iran all this time has been supporting.
If anybody's got
activities by
any
the proxies throughout
other
this
live
axis
streams
of
that they would like
resistance,
for me to
supporting
pull up, let me
Hamas.
know.
But Iran is Shia, Hamas is Sunni Islam, and consequently they are supporting them, but they are not fully.
I was making
supporting
like
them,
a
but now they are
recording
being
video
brought
instead of
because the
streaming,
attack
but I was
by
like,
Israel against the embassy
another war
in
starting, I might as
Damascus.
well take this
They may
opportunity to do my
actually
first
be
live stream.
involved in,
So here I
direct
am.
conflict with turning this into a regional war. Hopefully, this will be tamped down, stopped from becoming a regional conflict.
I'll admit,
but
I'm grifting
that
off
was
a war a
what
little bit.
Hamas wanted from the very beginning. They believed that when they did the October 7th attack, that they
Took
would
me
be
forever to
joined
find this live
by,
stream, rather watch a
other
regular
countries
person
in
than the fake
area
Western news
to
channels. Yeah, I
attack
appreciate
Israel.
that, dude.
So,
Me too.
this is all part of Hamas's plan. But
I mean, I don't have much to say. I mean, the things I would say is
attacking
pretty
the embassy
obvious.
in Damascus may have put this into
Israel
I gotta
killed
ask,
some of their
what was
generals.
the significance of that attack in Damascus? Who
Iran's
exactly was
pissed.
targeted, and
They
what was the
promised to
significance
attack,
of
and they're
Iran
attacking.
losing that person or people?
play.
Pretty cut and dry.
General
You attack somebody, you expect to be
and
attacked back.
his deputy commander were both killed in that attack.
What's different is
There was
Iran
a
usually does
British
talk a
general
big
that was killed in
game
the attack, and several
and doesn't
leaders
actually
of
do
some of
it,
the
and this time it
proxy
looks like
groups
they're actually
all
doing it.
killed,
So
in the,
here we are.
The Iran embassy in Damascus.
But we
This
can't
is
discount
where
the fact
the
that this
direction
is
of the
exactly
Quds
what the United
Force
States
was,
wants. They've been wanting this war
operating,
forever,
for the
and it looks like they're
proxies in
finally
that
about to
area.
get it.
And by taking out the leadership figures there,
So,
their ability to control
never
the
forget
proxies
that
in
the
that
United
area
States
was
instigates all
greatly
of this crap.
diminished.
As you continue to watch this unfold in the Middle East, I'm curious, Ken, what comes next? What are you going to be watching for?
And sadly,
next?
when I
This
say
is
that,
our first
you know, that brings
introduction
on the
into
you're
this
an
retaliatory
anti-Semite
strike we've
stuff,
been waiting for.
regardless of
We
the
are
fact
actually
that,
starting to see some movement
you know,
on
I
this
literally
front.
wear
What's
a
going to be the
necklace that
next questions
is in
that you're hoping
Hebrew,
to get answered in the immediate hours?
and I'm a
So
Christian,
if the
but
drones are shot down by Jordan,
I don't hate
by
Jewish people, I just hate war.
Saudi Arabia, by the United States or UK air
I hate
support, if they are
I hate wars that
shot
can be
down, then
prevented.
the big question is, will Hezbollah cross the border? Will they put boots on the ground, actual troops coming across the border into Israel, or whether they will just launch more missiles? They have been launching missiles throughout this entire conflict there in the Gaza Strip. The numbers vary. Sometimes it was 50 last weekend.
So they're saying it's going to take
Normally
like
it's
5
on the
hours for
order
these
of
drones to hit,
10
and
or
I'm
so
definitely
a
not going to
day.
be able to
And so the fact that
sit here and wait
Hezbollah
for
would
drones
launch
to
a few
hit,
missiles,
but
that's not a big surprise. But if there's a large barrage,
which I
that
doubt any of these
arrives at
drones
the
are going to
same
do much.
time as missiles from Iran, then that becomes a different matter, because the Iron Dome may not be able to handle a large saturation of missiles into their airspace.
Yeah, if
And
they
so,
do launch a bunch of
it'll be
ballistic missiles,
interesting to
that's a
see,
different
one,
situation.
if Hezbollah joins in with actual ground troops, two, whether they
The drones
join
are
in
supposed to
with
be there in
a
about an hour
barrage
and
of
15 minutes. Hey,
missiles
thanks for letting me
trying
know
to
that.
hit at the same time
You
as
mind telling me
any
where you got
missiles
that,
from
so I
Iran
can
entry,
look it up?
whether there's actually cruise missiles that,
'Cause I didn't
are
see
going
that.
to be launched en route. I don't think, despite the earlier reports that cruise missiles were in the air, I don't think those cruise missiles have
There's
been
no
launched
cruise
yet,
missiles,
because
I don't think.
then it would mean that the drones would never even have time to get into play.
Yeah, it would have
I
been
think that
pointless.
they would be timed when cruise missiles actually would arrive in Israel for those cruise missiles to then arrive at the same time.
So, Ken, we're getting some more information. Again, we will reiterate for our audience, new information is coming in. This is a very fluid situation. This one coming from Reuters reporter Idris Ali. She says that Jordan will temporarily close its airspace starting
Yeah, I
on
just read that a
Saturday
minute
night
ago. I'll be right back.
to all incoming, departing, and transit aircraft, state-owned Al Mamlaka News said on Saturday. I do believe there was another tweet from Reuters as well as this one. We had two updates from her, I believe. She also says that a number of drones were seen flying from the direction of Iran over Iraq's Soleimania province, 3 security sources told Reuters on Saturday. So we're not, exactly surprised that we're hearing that the Jordanian airspace is being impacted by current events. But you were kind of mentioning in depth there how these proxies work.
Godlike
And
Productions.
gotta
Okay,
ask,
I
because
appreciate that.
proxies have
Is that
been
on Twitter?
a topic of discussion ever since October 7th. The ones that come to mind, and the ones that so many of us have learned more about since October, were the Houthis in Yemen, Hamas in Gaza, we will say Hezbollah in Lebanon, and then there's also affiliates in Iraq and Syria.
Gotta have
as
the
well.
Celsius.
Ken, are any of those particularly powerful?
It's way bigger than
Are
a
any
drone
of them
swarm.
considered
It
to
is a
be
website.
the lead
Yeah,
proxy,
okay.
or do they all share that?
Hezbollah is by far the most powerful of all the different
I would
proxy
tend to
groups
agree.
in this area, and Hezbollah has always been the direct proxy for Iran. Iran provides training, they provide weapons, they provide money. By the way, Iran is flush with money because the United States allowed Iran to have access
$6 billion.
to funds that they had seized some time ago. And so instead of making $8 billion a year off of their economy, Iran has $87 billion to use to support all these activities. So it's not surprising that we see a lot of Iran-based equipment in the hands of some of these
No,
groups
it's
like
not.
the Houthis, because they are flush with cash that the United States provided to them. Now, something that we've not talked about that is a real threat here is that Iran has been developing nuclear weapons. We don't know the development stage of those nuclear weapons, but Iran, if it has nuclear weapons, it would, in my opinion, would be only a small number at this point. They've not had time or the capability to test any of those to show that their designs would actually work, but they did have time to do the enrichment to get the nuclear material, and would have time to make a few
because we
nuclear
helped them.
weapons. And so the question is whether or not these would come into play. Israel, on the other hand, is known to have nuclear weapons.
I'm glad the connection's good. I got Starlink
like
now,
that,
so.
were to happen, Iran would suffer a far greater price than what they would be willing to pay. So again, hopefully this will not move into a regional conflict, because it could very easily become nuclear.
I remember the reports around Christmas time, I want to say, sometime in December, when we were hearing about the uranium enrichment program being accelerated in Iran. You know, does this feel, Ken, like this is the closest we have been to some sort of wider conflict since October 7th?
Absolutely. So there's always been the threat that Hezbollah would get more involved, that some of the proxies would get more involved, and that we would be sucked into this conflict. Well, Iran's taken these actions now, and the possibility of an interchange of weapons between Israel and Iran really has pushed us to the brink. Hopefully we can step back away from the brink. Hopefully Iran will be satisfied.
There is no
with
stepping
their
back.
launch
They've been wanting
these
this
drones,
escalation for
or
forever.
Maybe some cruise missiles, or maybe the activities of Hezbollah in addition to the drones. Maybe that will be enough to satisfy their need for revenge for the attack on their embassy and their generals there. But, you know, that's speculation on my part as to what will satisfy them or not. But yes, I think that we are as close now as ever to the possibility of this bubbling over into a regional conflict.
You think?
I got to ask, what specifically could be targeted in this case? So
Everybody that they've had on is
we
just like
have
Captain
images out of
Obvious.
Southern Israel, Northern Israel, and out of Tel Aviv. So have we had any sort of inkling as to what Iran might go after, or is that anybody's best guess at this point?
I think it's anybody's best guess at this point. I don't have a crystal ball to be able to forecast where they're going to be attacking. But my guess is, if I were to make a guess, I would say it would be either military bases, IDF military bases, IDF air bases, or Tel Aviv. I don't believe that Jerusalem.
Well, at the
would be
rate
targeted
that these
because of the
conflicts have been
significance
unfolding, I don't
to-
think they
to,
care who they hit at
both
this point.
Muslims and to the Jews and to the
I think
Christians.
everybody's just out
And
for
so I
blood.
would think that that Jerusalem would be safe, but I think that Tel Aviv would certainly be a potential target.
We hear that President Biden will likely be making.
To me, it just
remarks
doesn't seem
tonight
like
in light of
anybody's got
this
any
ongoing
qualms about
situation.
killing civilians at this
What do you
point,
feel
on
is
any
most
side.
important for the president to say to Americans in light of this?
So I think that assurances that we have Israel's back, that we've been saying that all along, although we did waver a little bit in the UN Security Council with the vote on a ceasefire. When we abstained from that vote, it showed that we had a slight difference with Israel. But
All right, let's see what Twitter's saying.
We have Israel's back, and I think President Biden will reiterate that to ensure that the Israelis know that we have their back, and to put the Americans on alert that we may be taking action to support Israel. But you know, I'd also like to raise the specter of our southwest border being open like it is. That there may have been members of different terrorist groups that could have come into this country and have been waiting for orders to get into action. So we should also be on high alert for the possibility of actions being taken on the ground here. It's not a high probability, but it's still a possibility.
And while all of this is going on, Ken, there's still fighting going on in Gaza, correct?
Absolutely. So The plans to go into Rafah is still in
So apparently,
play. And
Palestinians are
negotiations
currently
trying to get
storming Al
hostages
Aqsa,
out is still
cheering
in
about
play.
the attack.
And
So
Israel has
that's what I'm
moved
seeing
some
on
of the
YouTube
IDF
right now.
forces out with the idea of giving them rest before they start the final.
Let's
push
give
into Rafah.
this news coverage a
Maybe,
little bit of a break
Israel has some.
and go see what's going on Twitter. I'm kind of getting tired of hearing that dude. All right. So that's Palestinians cheering at Al-Aqsa. I guess that's real. Major attack from Hezbollah on Israel right after the attack from Iran. Dozens of missiles were launched from southern Lebanon towards Galilee and Golan. I can't confirm most of the Twitter stuff. But I have no reason to not think it's real. Iran just failed the Iron Dome of Israel when it attacked on Israel after Iran Yemen launched their drones on Israel too. Lebanon just attacked northern Israel. Israel finally succeeded in starting World War III. It's not just Israel that started. Like, listen, guys. Yes, Israel plays a large role in escalating tensions, but everybody is at fault. Okay? Everybody wants war. I mean, Iran and other nations in the Middle East have been calling for war for years. Now, they have a lot of reasons to, but everybody wants war. Like, I'm not the type of person who's just going to blame one person. Now, Israel has instigated a lot of stuff, and I'm not ignorant to that. But I can't put the blame on one country. But I do recognize that Israel has played a significant role in escalating things. I thought this was funny yesterday. Listen to this dude. This is how you know they want this. This was Biden's warning before the attack.
Mr. President, to Iran in this moment.
Don't.
Are American personnel and assets at risk?
That'll tell them.
Mr. President, are American
Don't.
troops at risk as well?
We are devoted to the defense of Israel. We will support Israel. We will help defend Israel, and Iran will not succeed. Thank you.
That's a
very much.
walking corpse, dude.
What would trigger a direct U.S. response, sir?
He looks like, when he walks away like that, he looks like one of those like 4-year-olds that's like walking away. And I don't want to make fun of people on the spectrum, but he like looks like a 5-year-old autistic kid. Like, that's how gone he is. Not saying that autistic people are gone. It's just like they act socially awkward. And every time you see this dude in public, that's what he looks like. United States officials believe 400 to 500 drones and missiles will be launched at Israel. The U.S. predicts that about 85% of drones and missiles will be intercepted. The United States also appears to be ignoring Iran's warnings and will be assisting Israel intercept everything that passes over U.S. ships. Well, yeah. Everybody's like stating the obvious. Up to 500 drones and missiles are expected to be launched from Iran, Iraq, Syria, southern Lebanon, and the Houthis. Biden didn't want it. But listen, guys, Biden doesn't exist anymore. He's gone. Biden is not the one pulling the strings here. Why does everybody like say, "Oh, Biden did this"? Like, yeah, I'll say it as like the Biden administration did this, but Biden himself is not home. The emperor has no clothes. The dude doesn't exist. Like, yeah, I do say it too. I recognize that. But Biden's not there, man. All right. Let's go look at this.
Been firing long-range drones, which are very similar to what the Iranians have just fired. They can either be taken down by the Iron Dome or by David Sling or by helicopters or by fighter jets or a combination of them, according to
All right, I want to see what Sky News is saying.
Enrique says that
expect us to dictate terms to Israel. Yes, we have some, leverage, we have some influence like two allies do, but, you shouldn't expect the United States to dictate how Israel should run its war. But again, they are allies. And at the end of the day, you got to back up your ally when it comes under direct assault and threat by a rogue regime.
Mr. Aramesh, speaking of allies, let's
Well, they
bring
all
in a
instigated
statement
it, so
that
of course they're
we've,
going to back
just had
them.
on Twitter from the Foreign Secretary, the British Foreign Secretary, David Cameron, saying Iran's reckless attacks on Israel will only further inflame tensions in the Middle East. The
Reckless.
UK calls on the Iranian regime to
Like I
stop
said,
the
everybody
serious
involved in this
escalation,
is reckless.
which is in no one's interest. So that comment coming in from David Cameron, echoing similar words that we heard from the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Mr. Aramesh, very briefly, if you're still there, I mean, how worried do you think ultimately the United States will be about the developments that we're seeing in the Middle East? I mean, you say it's not for them to dictate rules to Israel on how to handle their affairs, but if it does lead to a regional war, obviously the U.S. is implicated.
Yeah, this is going to have ramifications
Obviously.
for all of us. We have major bases in the Middle East, in Qatar, and Bahrain.
Once again, stating the
troops
obvious,
all over
people.
the region, from Jordan and Kuwait all the way to Egypt and Saudi and Kuwait and UAE. You name it. There isn't a country that U.S. doesn't support and help with its security. And U.S. troops are. You have special operations forces in Syria and Iraq. You have conventional forces in other places. And then if if this war escalates and gets out of control, let's say it becomes a real hot conventional war, the two sides launching missiles, and the Iranians don't have much of an air force. They have sort of their main defense is their missiles and their proxies, their missile system, their proxies. But if the Israelis start launching a major campaign, the U.S. is going to get involved, and I think the de-escalation is no longer going to work. So I hope cooler heads would prevail.
Ari Aramesh, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave next hour. President Biden has cut short his weekend trip to Delaware and returned to Washington to deal with the crisis. Here, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has condemned the move in the strongest terms, describing it as a reckless attack
That doesn't
against
matter.
Israel.
Nobody's going to listen to you.
And the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, is at the Kiryat, that's the military headquarters in Tel Aviv, and currently convening the war cabinet. And we are getting more reactions in the past few minutes to those attacks from Iran into Israel. The Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron, has just tweeted, this is what he said, Iran's reckless attacks on Israel will only further inflame tensions in the Middle East.
Okay, y'all said that like 8
called-
times. All right, we're done with Sky News. How many times can you say that same thing?
It's both grand and great in size, and also symbolically. We have to say that this attack on the Iranian embassy in Damascus is something that's never happened before. We know that the United States bombed
Yes,
the
it
Chinese
has.
embassy in the 90s. But
Come on, dude.
at
It's,
least they apologized afterwards.
These
At
people,
least there was
man.
a semblance of guilt and
these things
regret.
have happened for
But
decades.
in this case, it's just straight
This
up
attack
you
from
know,
Iran hasn't
dropping
happened.
6 missiles from an F-35 in the middle of the day, And it's an outrageous violation of the Vienna Convention. You know, if someone
Like
had
saying
bombed
that
the U.S. embassy in this manner, and I'm
attacks
not
on
saying someone,
consulates
but
haven't
another
happened,
state
it's like,
had done
are
that
you
to a
high?
U.S. embassy or an Israeli embassy, I think they would not just launch 150 drones, but they would be launching.
This is what I mean when it, like,
nukes, perhaps.
if you want
Who
to criticize
knows?
Israel, fine, but
So
these
I
people,
think that
like,
the
just say
response
things
is,
that make no sense.
it was needed for Iran to show that it's not going to
I'm all
tolerate
about
these kinds of
criticizing what
actions,
Israel's done,
and
but
it's
they just,
needed
like,
for
say
the
the
whole world
stupidest
to
crap.
understand that you cannot just bomb a consulate and expect no response.
No,
And
I'm sorry,
unfortunately,
Keys to Wisdom.
you know, we're headed
People
down this
have it.
road because
They have been attacking
the
embassies
United
for a long
Nations,
time.
the World
Israel
Court,
attacked an
they
embassy
should be
quite a
doing
few
their
years
jobs.
ago,
They should
and
be,
nothing happened about it.
punishing Israel for this through the
And
mechanisms
then
that were set
there's
up after
been
World
quite
War
a
II.
few
But
embassy
unfortunately,
attacks
nothing has
over the last
happened.
couple
We didn't even
decades
have
from other
condemnation.
countries that aren't
You
Israel.
know, our government in England said absolutely nothing.
No, I agree.
About this
Keys to Wisdom, I
embassy
agree,
bombing.
but that it has
I'm
happened
sure that they'll be
before.
upset about Iran launching the drones tonight. So there's a lot of hypocrisy going on, and I don't think people understand how scandalous it is on an international scale.
There's hypocrisy on all sides.
Kill 12 diplomats.
Like, this
inside
is
of
why
a
I, like,
consulate. And on top of
I
that,
tell
in a
people
third-
when it
in a
comes
third
to
country.
war,
What do you make of the fact that
I'm
and again, I'll
moderate. I have a
reiterate,
moderate
we
take if
were
I'm covering it.
expecting some sort of movement on this front.
I have
and
my
now we're getting our
biases.
First look at what this is actually looking like from Iran's
Ecuador
perspective.
just
What do you make
stormed the
of fact
Mexico
that this is
embassy.
coming
Really?
From Iran proper and not from a proxy.
Really? Where are you seeing that at?
Well, it has a lot of meaning, of course. It carries a lot of weight because we've never seen something like this before. I would dispute the term proxy because
So, see,
proxy
that's
would mean that
that's gonna be a
you
thing
know,
now. People are just gonna
you're
start
taking
storming
orders
embassies, I guess.
from Iran. The irony
yep,
is that
I got
a
it
lot
here.
of these groups that are called proxies, for example, the Houthis in Yemen, they had no connection to Iran when they were formed.
Wow.
But because of the West basically vilifying them, maligning them, they ended up being pushed towards Iran. It's kind of like Russia.
Okay, it looks like this happened
Ukraine war sanctions.
a little while ago.
You know, we just pushed Russia into China's arms. So this
Been
is
all
the
over the
same
news.
thing,
Yeah, I haven't
and,
seen that. Like,
they're not proxies.
it's not
They're
coming
just
up on
people
my
who-
end, but I see it
who are
now.
fighting colonizers. You know, we colonized Yemen, for example. It was a direct colony.
I
There's very
agree,
bad
Wisdom.
historical
Governments
connotation there.
attacking
The
embassies
Yemenis,
are
they just don't
rare,
wanna be
but it
bombed
has
by Britain
happened.
anymore. They're just sick of that. And
Last week or
you know,
so,
the
yeah,
only
that's what I'm
person in
seeing.
the neighborhood who's willing to help them is Iran.
It is
And
very
so it's
rare
not
for it
that
to
they
happen,
take
but
orders
it
from
does
Iran.
happen.
But
It's
to
just
answer your
not a
question,
typical thing.
it carries significant weight. We should remember that the Iranians have been
I
developing
just we got to be
missiles,
careful.
ballistic missiles,
Like,
hypersonic missiles.
this guy
for
obviously has a
decades now,
strong
and they've
bias
gotten
against
quite
Israel,
good at it,
and that he's
despite
allowed to have that
sanctions,
bias.
I might add, which is
But
rather.
if you want to cover
extraordinary.
conflict,
And so
you got
see
to leave
these
those
drones
biases
now being
behind. You
used
have
in
to.
such a manner. I mean, we know that at least
Because
150
you
have been
can't
fired, and
properly
now we have a
assess
third wave coming.
what's going on from either
It's
side if
confirmed by everybody,
you
by the
interject
US,
your
by
bias
Israel,
into
by-
each and
by the
everything.
Iranians. This is never seen before, and
'Cause that's called
it's not
propaganda.
just Iran. We should also point that out because they're doing this in multiple waves. So the first wave was from Iran, but the second wave we're seeing.
I watch this
drones
guy
being
sometimes on
fired
YouTube. He is
from
crazy
areas
hardcore
like
against
Iraq,
Israel. Has a big
Syria,
yeah. I mean,
Lebanon. And so the idea
I've
is to
heard of
try
them
and,
before, but
overwhelm the
I try
Israeli
to stay away
defense
from these
system,
types of
the
people
Iron
because,
Dome,
like,
and you know, they're
you're not
electronic
adding
warfare, radar,
anything
and surveillance.
significant for
so,
me. You're just
We have that,
shouting
and
your
then
talking
there's going to be a
points.
third wave with ballistic missiles, and you know, as you pointed out, this is
And
going to take
he can
hours
he's
until we
allowed to
actually
have
see
that
the
bias. I
damage.
get it.
And I
But
think
if you
that,
want to
there's going to be a
properly
lot of
cover a
damage, and the fact
conflict,
it came
you
from
can't
Iran
do that.
directly, like I said, it carries a lot of weight, but you can't really blame them because they're just
Like I said, I
responding
have my
to
bias. I have lots of
Israeli
biases. I'm not going to tell y'all my thoughts.
What are you going to be watching for in the
Well,
coming
I will.
hours?
Like,
what
I
questions
told you
do
my
need
thoughts in
answered,
the video I
in the
posted
next few
yesterday,
hours as
but,
we
like,
anticipate that this artillery
that's
will
different.
eventually
Like,
make
if
its
I
way,
want to, I'll
toward
let you
Israeli
know if I'm
airspace. We've
going
also
to interject
seen
my
that the
bias. But in
Jordanian
this
officials are saying
situation,
that they will shoot
covering
anything
it,
out of the sky that
unfolding,
enters their
I leave
airspace
that
as well.
behind.
So what are the threads that you're going to be watching as these things continue to move across the sky?
you have to let people know,
So I want to
hey,
see how
these are my thoughts.
international community
But when you're
responds.
actually covering
I
the
wanna see
situation,
how,
you got to
know,
leave that.
My government responds in the UN Security Council. I want to see what is going to happen because
Which I'm talking like
you know,
I'm
it's
this
a bit
big
difficult now to say Iran did
journalist. I'm
something
not.
bad,
I'm just
but we didn't
a
say
person
anything
that
when the embassy was
likes
bombed.
to cover
so that's
stuff.
number one. Number two, I want to see what
My
weapons
biases
are
are
being
USA
used,
based,
because,
and I am pissed that
what
Biden is
Israel has been
endangering all
trying to do
Americans
is
with these
to
activities in
provoke
Ukraine
Iran
and Israel. Yep.
and Hezbollah
I agree.
specifically into revealing what
100%.
weapons they have, and we don't know that
100%.
ultimately what their entire arsenal consists over with NATO. And in the end, they actually defeated Ukraine using Iranian drones.
Biden is
Shahid
destroying the
131 and
country.
136.
I mean, that's
so
just
I want to see if those are being used
objectively
today.
true.
So
Anybody
again,
who denies
the
that
response from the
is
international
lying.
community, the kinds of weapons being used, are we going to see any new weapons revealed by Iran in this specific occasion? And obviously, you know, these are questions that won't be answered for several days, I might add.
So, when we talk about the initial attack in Damascus and this being
This guy's kind of annoying me.
to that attack, you say that there are questions to be answered about how, and Israel, I should say, never officially took responsibility for that attack, but so many of our analysts have told us that there really wouldn't be too many other people that are capable of doing such an attack. So if there could be an argument that reparations are to be made for that attack, could there be an argument to be made that reparations should be made about whatever is taking place from Iran's angle this time around?
Well, you know, there's an action and then there's a reaction. You're absolutely correct that only the Israelis could have done this, because we have to look at who has the capability to do this, who has the weapons, who wants to do this, and who can get away with it. And the Israelis fit the bill. And
y'all want to see who's gonna fight the war for America?
In Damascus, in Syria's capital. The Israelis have bombed Syria. Actually, they bomb it every 2 weeks, and they never acknowledge those strikes either. But it's obvious that it's the Israelis because, you know, they're coming from
I don't
the
think these are
Golan
Americans,
Heights.
though,
They're
are they?
registered on the radar, and like we
I mean,
pointed out, nobody else has
basically the
motive
same
nor
thing.
the capability to do that. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if we're now in the thousands of airstrikes in Syria. We know the Israelis, some Israeli officials, retired ones, have admitted that, yes, Israel has been bombing Syria hundreds and hundreds of times. So we have confirmation from them. But
everybody's been bombing Syria
operandi
hundreds
is
and
not
hundreds
to
of times.
acknowledge the strike. So it completely fits the bill. You know, on the contrary, it confirms even further that it was Israel, because Israel never comes out and announces a strike.
All right, we're gonna be wrapping up here
reparations,
shortly.
I mean, no one has been killed.
Because I gotta go to work.
Thus far in this Iranian
Unfortunately.
response. So that's number one. Whereas if you look at the Iranian embassy, we had 12
But
people killed.
what I
I believe,
probably
and so
will
half
be
of them
doing
were
when I get
Iranian
off
and
work
half
later
of them
tonight
Not
is
only
going
that,
live
but
again
not only
and
the loss of
covering
human
whatever
life, but
happens.
you know,
So,
the attack on a consulate, on an embassy. I mean,
Keys to Wisdom,
this
I
is
appreciate you
a
coming in here and
sacred,
chatting.
place. You know, it's
And also,
it's
Joseph,
inviolable.
I appreciate
And
you.
Every country in the world has understood
Yeshua
this
is
since the
Lord.
Vienna Conventions of
Yes, he is,
1961
and I appreciate
1963.
you.
You don't attack diplomats. you don't
Saying, I
attack
appreciate
embassies.
you.
You know, these are
And then,
basic rules.
Raps, you're
and no
ready.
one has ever done
I
something
appreciate
like
you as
this.
well.
So it really is crossing a line. And I should
Subscribe
add,
to check you out again. Hey, I appreciate that, man. I'm going to try to go live later tonight, probably around 11 Central Time.
So you
When
see
I get
it's
home
leading
from
us
work.
down a very dangerous
I'm only
road.
going to work for a few hours. I got to make a
Again,
little bit of money.
I'll put to you, I submit to you that if someone bombed
But
an American embassy, a
my
country bombed
thoughts,
an American embassy, or an Israeli embassy,
this sucks. War
wouldn't they
sucks.
respond in the same way that Iran is responding, or even
It doesn't
harsher?
matter who's at fault
What do you think
when it
the
comes down
UN
to it
is
actually
watching
happening.
tonight?
It
What do you think they're most
it
interested
shouldn't
to see
happen,
how this unfolds?
but it does. And
Well, they'll come out.
I'm
and
not
they'll
not
make
gonna
some statements,
point my
but they won't
fingers.
get
Well, I will
anything
point my
done.
fingers at
That
Biden
is
for
unfortunately
instigating a lot of
the
this,
true
like you
nature of the
said.
United
But
Nations. You have a lot of good people who
get
work
bigger
there.
on here and set up
You
donations,
know,
and you will
I'm
make some money
biased
streaming.
when I
Hey,
say that 'cause my
I
parents were in UN peacekeeping. But
I'm
the
hoping
problem is that at the
I
top
get some
of the UN,
subs
the UN
and
is
can
enormous.
monetize,
I
but
don't think people realize how huge it is as an organization.
people keep telling me to
At
like
the
put a
top, you
Venmo and
have,
Cash App on here. I just don't want to
people
like
who make sure that
make
it
people
doesn't
think
work.
I'm like money hungry.
One problem,
I guess,
for example,
but
is veto power. I mean,
should I do
I'm
that?
against this.
Would
I
you
don't think my
suggest
country
me
should have
putting
I
that
don't
in
think
there?
the Russians or the Chinese or the United States or France should have that, because it's always been a source of
Buy me a
problems in the
coffee. It's
Security
easy to set
Council.
up. Okay, I'm
So
gonna
that
write
sets
that
the
down. real quick.
foundation of the UN. So if tonight somebody goes to the UN Security Council and says, we want to get a resolution passed against Iran, and you're in favor of that, well, Russia's going to veto it, China's going to veto it, and that's
Okay.
going to please some people.
Buy me a coffee. So
and it's
you would
gonna upset
suggest I set up
others.
donations?
And so now we're playing politics.
I didn't
instead
want
of
to drive
sticking
people
to,
away and think
the
I'm like
issues
trying
of
to
what is
fish for
right and
money.
what is wrong. and again, this issue with the embassy should have been taken there immediately.
Cool.
But you know,
They take like
Russians,
5% of the donation costs nothing, like
session.
3 days to
The
get going.
Russians
Okay.
came and they read these statements, and then
Okay. I'm gonna look into that.
you
I
know,
appreciate the advice,
our
man.
countries in the West don't say anything, and it's shocking. And,
yeah.
you know, honestly, it's shocking.
So I'm gonna wrap up here.
So tonight with
Like I
this
said, I
attack
appreciate you. Thanks for subbing,
or
dude.
shall I say response from Iran, they're just going to be
I'm gonna try around 11 Central
whether
Time,
the
at
Israelis
the
are able
latest
to defend
12.
themselves, if they're able
I
to
watch a lot of
thwart,
live streams and people
all
donate.
of
Yeah, I
these,
watch a lot of them
various
too, and
weapons systems, the
it's
drones,
crazy
the
how much
missiles,
money people
the
donate.
cruise missiles and ballistic missiles that the Iranians are firing.
So we'll see.
And,
As this
then they'll go
thing
and condemn
escalates,
Iran, but they won't say anything
and
about
while I'm
Israel.
working, I'm gonna
It's
look
the same
into a
old
lot
thing.
more things, ways that I can
Richard,
cover
we're
it
gonna
to
leave
be
it there for now.
more
We appreciate your
entertaining.
analysis. Take care.
This is my first live
Thank you
stream,
very
so
All right, let's slide away.
I'm gonna look
a
for
real quick
some
commercial break.
sources
We're
where
gonna
I
keep
can
on
make
this story.
my
We're back in
coverage
2
a little
minutes.
bit more entertaining. I know war is not supposed to be entertaining, but I do want people to stick around as I cover it. So this Richard dude rakes in. I bet he does. I mean, right now, pro-Palestinian Israel hate makes a lot of money. Makes a lot of money. I refuse to take that position. This is why he is so one-sided to, yeah. Money drives biases, that's for sure. That's for sure. It's sad. But like I said, I refuse to do that. Like, I'll admit I'll grift, but I'm not gonna do that. Going neutral can get it coming too. That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping. Good luck at work. Hey, I appreciate it, man. And with that, I am gonna sign off here. Thanks for the advice. Thanks for the chat. This sucks. I hate that it's happening. But anyways, like I said, I'm gonna try around 11, 12 Central. And I'll see everybody later if you come back. Thanks, man.